So for those of you who don't know me, I am Dr. Sarah Webb. I'm an assistant professor of the English department. This is my second year here. So I generally like to poll the room. Show of hands, who's heard of the term colorism? Okay, great. Keep your hands up if you understand the term. Okay, that's fine, totally fine. So the term colorism refers to discrimination, bias, or prejudice based on the skin tone of people that are generally the same race. So this is confusing for a lot of people. Well, I thought that was racism. So racism is based on genetics, it's based on a label. People say, oh, well, race is a social construct. We came up with these categories and put people into them. Colorism, however, is based on your biological phenotype, right? So even if race is a social construct, your phenotype is not. And so you can be the same race and have very different phenotypes. You can have very different complexions and still be considered the same race, different hair types, eye colors, and that sort of thing. So I'm going to talk about 3 different aspects of colorism. I'm going to start with why I'm interested in the topic. Then I'm going to tell you my approaches, my professional and creative approaches to the topic. And then I'll talk about the genesis of the book itself. So why am I interested in colorism? My phenotype. If we look around the room, not many people in here look like me. But this is true even when I'm in family settings. For example, my mom and my sister are several shades lighter than me. They have slightly lighter eyes and a different curl pattern to their hair, right? So in my everyday experiences growing up, long before I thought I'd ever get a PhD, or thought I would know so many people with PhDs, I was dealing with this issue of colorism. But at the time, there was not really discussions about it. There weren't people using the term colorism, and I personally felt like it was a taboo subject, right? And within my community and also at large. But then I started teaching high school. This is like 2011, 2010. And many of my students were African Americans, and they would say things like, well, I'm less proud of myself because I got dark over the summer. Or I wish I was light-skinned like my mom. Or I don't really like this picture because I look too black on here. Okay? So that's when I realized that I could no longer just sit by while this issue continued to impact these young people that I had grown so fond of and that I really cared about. And of course, being the writer that I am, I figured my way of addressing the issue would be through writing, right? So this brings me to my approach to the topic. So I started blogging about colorism in 2011. But then in 2013, I decided to dedicate more space. I felt like the issue needed a platform for itself, so I launched the website Colorism Healing in 2013. And so if you are familiar with the background of a website, you can see how people reach your website. And so I was looking at my analytics, and people were literally typing in colorism poems, poems about colorism. So I said, are there any poems available about colorism? So after doing some online searching in 2013, I realized that there was not a lot available online already. So I said, well, why don't I provide some? I could generate them all myself, or I could invite the very people who are searching for poems about colorism to produce some of their own. So that's when in 2014, I decided to launch the Colorism Poetry Contest. And since then, I've opened it up to not just poetry, also essays and short stories. And by the way, this contest is currently going on. So if you know anyone who's interested in submitting, the deadline is March 15th, you can submit online. And over that time, since 2014, I have had submissions from people as far as California, to Australia, to India, to Canada submit. People who speak a variety of languages and write in a variety of languages. People whose skin tones and phenotypes span the gamut of what those things could be or look like. And people of all ages, right? So people as young as preteens to people who are old enough to be my parent, right? And a lot of times what I'm hearing in these stories is that despite that vast diversity, there are still similar experiences in terms of the negative perceptions of darker skin tones, especially among women. So the contest breaks down to about 80% people who identify as women and 20% people who identify as male or men. And that's when I decided that, okay, this is an issue that's big enough for me to go back and get a PhD for. I was ready to commit more time, more effort, more of my life's work to the issue of colorism. So, applying for the PhD program, I knew that I would continue to talk about these stories of colorism, but I wanted to add more of the critical lens. So in addition to creative writing, right, I also do more academic, scholarly research. I do a lot of collaborations with people in other fields like social work and education. I've taught a lot of workshops in high schools and professional developments with teachers and educators, especially since I have a K-12 background myself. And then the current state of the anthology. The first two contests, I did not publish a book. But in 2016, I decided to begin publishing books. And so I have 3 anthologies. The first one is the most popular, which is just a poetry book. But designing the covers of the book, let me go to that. Okay, yeah, so designing the covers of the book, once I started publishing them, this image is called Consort, and it was painted by a good friend of mine named Camille Hoffman that I met in grad school. And the other anthologies were, the cover art was designed by other artists. And I said, okay, so I'm talking about this very visual issue, right? So colorism is all about what we see. But I'm not really engaging visual art in any kind of way. So I decided to engage with the visual side of the storytelling, visual side of telling the narrative and the experiences of colorism. And so in 2019, so last year, about a year ago today, I hosted an art exhibit at the University of North Carolina in Wilmington. And I was just talking to him about presenting at a conference with some of those artists and thinking more about the future of colorism healing in this initiative that I've started in terms of expanding the conversation and just exploring the connections between language and narrative and storytelling, both visually and verbally, right? So that's kind of where I'm looking to go in the future, right? And I've submitted proposals for an exhibition that is very much integrated with the local community, so having an exhibition, but also having writing workshops in response to the visual art, right, and having discussions and panels and dialogues. So my scholarship is very diverse and interdisciplinary, right? Everything from the creative writing side to providing platforms and opportunities for other creative writers and artists, but also that public engagement, that activist work, and actually being tapped into the communities that issues like colorism really affect. And then I have a short clip that I'll play. Oh, before I do that, so I mentioned that the contest is currently underway, and I am very fortunate to be working with one of UIS's brightest students, Diana Vasquez, over there. So Diana Vasquez is doing this as part of her Eche credit, and so she is helping me to design flyers and promote the contest, and once we get all the submissions in, she'll be helping me to review them, and she is interested in editorial work, right? So as a career, learning more about publishing and dealing with writers and putting together anthologies will be very useful for her as experience. So, you know this part? Okay, great. So in this clip, you'll see the live discussion that I stream on YouTube after the books are published. So I invite authors, as many of them as can appear live together on camera. They read some of their works, and then we have a discussion about what it's like to write about colorism, their personal experiences with colorism. So I call it a live book launch. And since they come from all over the world, we do it via Google Hangouts. And so one of the writers you'll see who has a plaid shirt, Skyped in from India. It was about 6 p.m. in Illinois, and it was 5 a.m. where she was. So there's a 15-year-old girl who woke up at 5 a.m. to be on the call. And for me, that beyond, the publishing credits, and the scholarship credits, just the fact that what I'm doing means so much to these individual people is worth all the effort and the work and the time and energy that I put in.
From the roots of my head sprang strands of gorgeous hair. Natural pink.
The color pink favor relates to
whether black as a kettle or a deep brown Hershey's Kiss, you are a radiant reflection.
They are more than our skins. They
there are talents in our souls.
And it isn't decided to color, and it will still.
None of them ever called me ugly, but they should never call me pretty.
Make sure you stay inside. No te quieres quedar más de lo que ya eres. You don't want to hurt.
What if skin tone preferences were clearly spelled out for all the school children on their birth?
I used to wish my hair could fall flat.
Dear black men, do you not beautiful? Billboards and movies show the types that they'll be using.
This beautiful melanin, giving way to a deep brown tint.
Okay, so that was a 1-minute clip of about a 2.5-hour discussion.
Wow.
And technically speaking, the volume levels varied. There's also a series where I interviewed men on colorism, so there's an entire YouTube page if you're interested. So that pretty much concludes. I would love to talk to you all more about the actual publication of the book. So it is self-published, right? It's a creative writing anthology, so I know that people might have questions about that, what self-publishing is like. And I can talk to you about the reasons why I chose to do that for this initiative and why I think it's good for grassroots, more activist-oriented type of process. All right, thank y'all.